Alright, I just had some conversation about some topics about government and all that. I thought I might do a video on it, and I'll just record myself on audio. Don't know what I'll put on video for this video. Yeah, I'll figure that out later. So, I debate about everything, and I don't lose debates, and I would like to talk about government. If anyone wants to debate me over this. Now, the things I'm about to say, when you first hear them, you might cringe at first, thinking, oh, that sounds like this ideology or that ideology. But if you listen to what I'm saying, I'm talking about something completely different, in many ways opposite, completely opposite to what it may appear to be. So be open-minded and patient with what I'm about to say, and really think about what I'm saying, what I'm proposing. Now, the whole basis of what I'm about to say is you need to think about things from a completely different perspective. That's the main thing. You need to just think from a different perspective, a different way of thinking, and different way of measuring things. Okay, I'll just introduce some ideas of government, how it should be, and how to make it right. I can talk about this all day and debate about it. I'll just give you some basic ideas. I could go on about this all day, but I'll just try and sum it up as quickly as I can. This is going to take a while though. So, government. Now, the idea of government isn't to rule over with authority and enslave people and all the corrupt shit that people interpret government as it's been corrupted today. That's not the original idea. The original idea was right, and it's just been corrupted. And the original idea has been long forgotten. That's a long topic in itself. So what happens is a system gets put in place for civilization and a government, and you have, I won't explain too much about the whole concept of police, from the word polis, the Greek word polis, police, polis, policy, politician, all from the same root word polis. That's an old topic in itself. I'll go too much off topic to do that. So you have government with an original idea, and it works. It's a good idea, moral idea, and it's for the enlightened creature above the animal kingdom. And it's all been corrupted. Now, you have the idea of government. Consider it like a watchtower. And you go to war, and the watchtower gets attacked, and it gets damaged, and you repair it. It goes through another war, it gets more damaged, you repair it again. It's full of patchwork. You go through wars time and time again, and it's repaired and damaged over and over, to the point where it's an absolute mess, patched together with bits all over the place. It's scarcely recognizable from what it originally was. And consider this watchtower is like the government. Now, especially after World War II, but been going on for a long time, but especially after World War II, when the bad guys won, there's been an intense battle between good and evil within government. Evil infiltrated the government and has been trying to take over, rewrite laws, and do a lot of bad things, and change civilization into a whole slavery mess, Zionist slavery mess. So there's been a battle between good and evil within the law, and evil exploits loopholes in the law. The law wasn't designed properly in the first place. It was designed in olden times, and they didn't consider scenarios that would happen, and especially today, especially in the information age. Laws are extremely outdated, and they weren't built properly to begin with. Some of them had a good foundation, a good idea behind them, but they weren't constructed properly to begin with. So there were holes in it to begin with, and evil exploited those holes. So evil exploits those holes. They patch them up, they write new laws, and they make the law gets more complicated as they do it. Every time they have to patch up a loophole that the evil exploits, as is this battle between power within government. And it becomes more confusing as time goes on. And what the good side end up doing by fighting evil, by making all these laws to stop evil, they end up restricting themselves, disempowering themselves in the process, so making it virtually impossible for them to do anything either. So while restricting evil, they end up restricting themselves in this complicated method, to the point where no one understands how the law works anymore. There's all these kind of vague interpretations of different things. Everything's constantly being changed and fixed and reinterpreted, and it's just a giant fucking mess. It gets worse. It is a one-way trip. You can't go in the other direction in this. It is a one-way direction to oblivion. This battle between good and evil in government. It always leads to the same destination. So you end up with a complete mess, and what happens is the good cannot fight the evil anymore, and the evil will just keep going until it finds loopholes, and the good can no longer stop evil from exploiting those loopholes because they're disempowered. So evil eventually gets the upper hand, and it will always end like this. It'll not end, but it'll always go through this algorithm. Evil will exploit and slowly take over, and good will be losing the battle, and evil will systematically write laws and write more loopholes into the law for themselves, and they'll slowly take over and erode the whole concept of law and turn it into a big Zionist slavery bullshit mess. And as in the last decade or two, the Zionists, globalists, whatever you want to call them, and I'm not saying all Jews. In fact, most Jews are Zionists. Not all Jews are Zionists. All Muslims are Zionists, and some white people, only some white people are Zionists. A lot of Asians are Zionists. A lot of blacks are Zionists. It's not a religious thing. It's an ideology, which I can explain later. Too off topic. So, last couple of decades, they've really eroded the law hugely, and it just increasingly as time goes on, especially around the Obama time, it was really bad. And so they rewrite laws constantly, and they offer their own Trojan horse ideologies as a solution to the very problem that they're perpetrating. That's a long story in itself. I can explain a little later. So it becomes a big mess, and evil starts winning, and they end up basically slowly taking over government and rewriting laws and turning it into what you would call it communism. That's what they're doing. They're trying to turn it into communism. Not to be confused with socialism. They call themselves socialists. They're communists, not socialists. National Socialism is actually a defense against communists and the Zionists who are behind it, and other ideologies, egalitarianism, multiculturalism, all this. It's all the same ideology. So anyway, they're trying to turn it into a communist state. Now communism is not meant to be a permanent thing. It's meant to destroy a people and completely eradicate them and strip them of their heritage, and then another system is installed after that. There's long story to all that, how it works. So government gets taken over by evil, and the side of good realizes what we're doing doesn't work. The good side of good is basically mostly kicked out of government. Evil takes over all sides of government, gains a monopoly on every industry, every side of government, and everything. So what does good do? Good has to fight back in a different way. Side of good has to fight back in a different way. And with this has been going back and forth from the rise and fall of civilization, the same algorithm. And it happens through immigration from parasite cultures, if you'd call them cultures. They move in and they destroy and corrupt and consume everything. Every civilization's happened the same way. So where was I at? So the information age is a new factor with the internet has provided the side of good a way to communicate against the censorship of the side of evil. And it is through the internet that the side of good are able to organize and share the truth and information, and the side of evil is losing the war in the war of ideas over the internet. And they're right now, and especially in the past several months in this year, they're desperately trying to censor the internet. They're desperate, and it's all falling apart. Now, what happens as evil gains more power in government? Now, it is self-destroying. Their ideas don't work. It's all corrupt. It's all Trojan horses. They're short-sighted. They don't understand their own ideologies, where the algorithms lead. So as evil gains more power, things get more degenerate, and as they gain a monopoly, things rapidly decline and self-implode. So after evil gains power, the side of good starts to get more power again, and they eventually overcome the side of evil in in a huge war. Now, with the information age is of the internet, it is introduced for the side of good to have a chance. Now, good often gets often but not always gets genocided by the side of evil, because the side of evil knows that good is having a comeback, and they just genocide everyone. They can't do this with the information age, with the internet, because the moment they try this crap, they get exposed, and everyone will fight against them. So, they can't do this genocide thing directly. They have to be really covert about it. And now they've installed their own tower of lies. They're trapped in so many of their own lies that they've disabled themselves. But the same way that they disabled the side of good in government and took over, they've destroyed themselves. Their whole tower of lies is falling apart by the same mess of making up lie after lie and trick after trick. It's all collapsing on itself. So the side of good starts to come back early before they're killed off because of the information age. This is important because the white race is being genocided on a global scale. It is on its last legs against this massive genocide, and it has a huge chance and a growing chance. And they're scared shitless of white people rising up, especially after World War II. They're scared shitless of National Socialism, and they're scared shitless of the white race rising up, because they've got the upper hand now, and the side of good has got an upper hand early before they can be killed off because of the information age. Now, how do you fight this evil? How do you stop this pattern from going? You need to see things from a completely different perspective. You need to understand what even the concept of government even is. We're in the information age. We can actually debate across the world. I can debate anyone listening. You can be on the other side of the world, 2 a.m. I can debate you right here, right now. There's the power of the information age. The power of ideas, putting ideas against each other and testing them and proving the truth. Not indoctrinating people from cradle to grave and using intimidation to force them to conform to a system and a belief and an idea that they're not allowed to challenge in a taboo. No, we can debate, and debate is the solution. You need to debate anyone listening to this thing. You need to debate everyone. You especially need to debate me, because if there's anything we disagree on, I can almost guarantee you that I will blow your mind and have you completely change your position. I haven't lost a debate in 20 years, longer than 20 years, but I say 20 years for a reason, since I started Anonymous. I win debates for a reason. Anonymous grew for a reason. And there's a lot of things that are not publicly known. You need to debate me on anything you disagree with me on. You need to learn how I win debates. You need to learn not just the information and ideas I have. You need to gain the skill of using information. You need to first wield the truth like a flaming sword. Then you have to learn how to use that sword. And it's not some massive mastery of skills. I can teach some of the most inadequate people to become ideologically immortal in a short time. All you need is the right motives, the truth to be on your side, and a little practice. And you can do everything that I can do. I can teach you to be ideologically immortal. When morality and truth are on your side, nothing can defeat you. They can only kill your body. That's all they can do. That's what they're scared shitless of. So if you disagree with anything I say, debate me on it. And there's only so much I can say in this video. I can go on for hours and hours. So idea of government, you need to see things from a completely new perspective. The whole idea of government and the problems in government. Now, a lot of what I'm about to say, it's not like it's new knowledge. A lot of people, especially white people who are on the conservatives, are coming to these conclusions themselves. Not everything I'm going to say they are aware of, but most of it. And basically, this is not some amazing secret. It's common damn sense. Most of it's common sense. Anyone think about it, just a little bit of thought, and you realise that all makes sense. That's obviously what everyone's trying to do anyway. But the whole point is you need to see this from a completely different perspective and attack it from a completely different angle. So I just cover some fundamental ideas, which are not necessarily all new ideas, but they're important ideas, critical to understanding the big picture, what's wrong in the world, and how to fix it. So here's an idea of, let's just say, which topic should I start with? Let's start with police. Okay, throughout the world, not just the Western world, all out throughout the world, police are extremely corrupt. And it's just gone ridiculously corrupt now. Now, there's an argument that people make that, but there's some good cops out there. Well, I put forward to you this concept. What are these good cops doing about the rampant systemic bad cops? They work in a rampantly corrupt system. Their own fellow police officers are totally corrupt. They know it. What are they doing about it? They know their buddies are corrupt. What are they doing about it? If they're a good cop, what the hell are they doing about it? What does a good cop do? A good cop blows the whistle. They secretly document as much as they can. They go public with it, blow the whistle, and they fight the bad cops, and they're outspoken about it. They complain about the police corruption because they have standards of that. They obviously, if they're a police officer, they believe in the idea of the police, and they believe in preserving the legitimacy of the police. What are they actually doing about that to preserve the legitimacy of the police? Good cops dob on bad cops. If they're not dobbing on bad cops, they are not a good cop. They may think they're a good cop. They are a bad cop who thinks they're a good cop. So the idea is the police are irreversibly corrupt everywhere. And the idea of police is messed up. It's broken in the first place. It was an original idea of police, and then you have military and you have police doing different things. That idea is all a Trojan horse mess. So here's what you do. To fight police corruption, and Peter something, the guy who was brought from the UK to fix the New South Wales police corruption, he said the same thing, that the New South Wales police force, the culture of corruption is so stagnant and entrenched, there is absolutely no way to save it. And he was supposed to be the best of the world of anti-corruption. He said there's no way to save it. The only way to start to fix the New South Wales police force is to sack every single cop in the state, completely disassemble the entire police force and start over from scratch. And don't let a single cop who worked in the police force ever work for the police force again. It is that bad. Now, I fully agree with that. And that idea should apply to every country. Just replace the whole idea of police. And you do it like this. You sack because police are so rampantly corrupt, you sack every single police officer in the entire country. You perform a massive investigation of all the complaints that are made. You don't make any excuses or apologies for it. You crack down on you perform an inquisition on the police with no pity on them. And you imprison every damn one of them you can. It is up to the police to prove. The only police officers who will ever you ban the whole lot of them from ever working for the government ever again, and the only ones who can are those who can clearly prove that they have a history, an active history of fighting police corruption and actively doing something about it and being outspoken about it. Because if they are not, then they are part of the corruption, whether they realize it or not. If they're not fighting the corruption, then they're a part of it, whether they realize it or not. They're supporting it. They're covering for their buddies, and they don't even realize they're doing it. And the only police officers who will ever be allowed to work for the government again are those who prove that they've been fighting the corruption. And they can work for the government again. And especially they can work for the new police, and they can actually be the leaders of the new police who can guide who is to be the new police. Now, who are the new police? The military. What does the military do? They sit on their asses, taking money, training for wars that never happen, and when they do go for war, they serve self-serving agendas of corporations and gritty warmongers. They don't really fight proper wars that actually make a difference. They end up fighting for the side of evil in the name of good. So here's what you do. The military are there to protect your country from foreign threats. No, change that. Just make it simple. Simple as this. The military are there to protect your country from all threats, inside or outside. The military are the police, and they are they're trained as police. Normally, while they're not at war, they're policing the streets. They're doing the job of police, and they're trained as police, and they're also trained for war outside as well at the same time. Now, every one of these police officers must wear a body camera at all times. If they are caught not doing it, then they are instantly fired, whether they're charged or not. They must record everything they do while on duty at all times. Now, this is very easy to do. It does not cost them. They say it costs a lot. Bullshit. It costs shit all. It's easy to do. You log in, you log out, and you record. So you do this, and they record everything that happens, so that any complaint against any police officer, if there's a complaint against a police officer and they have their camera turned off, they get into deep shit. Deep shit. Not simply sacked, they get into deep shit. Very deep shit. It's the price of wielding the power. So normally they police the streets, and they have ties to the very communities. They have connections to the communities that they're supposed to be protecting. They're involved in the community. They actually have a role to play. They're not some group of evil trained warmongers who want to kill people who don't have no connection to the people, who've never met the people they're supposed to protect. They actually have a connection to the people they're protecting, and they're trained in more ways than simply making war and killing people. They're actually trained in being civilized and have moral values and responsibilities. Now, imagine the benefits of that when they do go to war overseas, and they have some kind of moral center and a sense of responsibility, and they may actually have a respect for the civilians in these other countries, and want to actually help them protect their own people as they do. They have a reference to refer to, something to keep them in check and keep them from doing bad things. So the military is there to protect from threats, regardless of where they are. Now, the greatest threats are not coming from the outside, they're coming from the inside, from immigrant parasites who've come from the outside and they've taken over from the inside. That is the greatest threat. Now, I'll get to that point in a moment, actually, about the size of the military. Now, not only do you turn the military into a police, so they're actually doing something when they're not at war, something that means something, and actually earning the money that they're getting paid for it. Now, when you go to war, you're taking your own police off your streets and sending them to war. So, when you go to war, you're actually balancing out your policing inside or outside, and you have to measure the cost of if you've got a lot of crime in your own country that you need police to deal with, then you really need to sort your own shit out before you start sorting other people's shit out. Now, if you've got less crime, then you're able, and everyone's civilized, then you have more of a moral right to engage in war if it's necessary, legitimately necessary overseas, and you have the moral high ground to do so, and you have less of a cost from doing it. It all balances out. So when you go to war, it comes at a cost that's easily observable, as opposed to like the US going to war and getting themselves into a shitload of debt. So understand the whole balance of how that works. Think about it. And debate me about it. We can try and discuss more about it. There's a whole beautiful balance there of responsibility and accountability for going to war. So, the size of the military. Now, if you put the military as more of a focus on being police, now what about all the warmongering going on? They're not harvesting the stockpiling of weapons, ever increasing out of proportion, arming themselves against potential threats. Now, look, China's not going to invade tomorrow. Russia's not going to invade tomorrow. Now, just to say they did. Let's just say worst case scenario, China, for example. Let's say you not disarm the military. You significantly arm them less, only as they need to be, with a little bit extra as needed. But you significantly reduce the military spending. So you might think, oh, we're prone to an attack. No, you're not prone to an attack. If they attack you, they're still going to suffer for it. Now, it's more than that. If you're such a country living in such a way that you're not a threat to anyone else, you're promoting the right for everyone to segregate in their own countries. You change the whole trade system where no one's exploiting anyone, where everyone's as independent as they can be. You sort your own shit out first. You be on the right side of morality and truth. Do that, and the bad people in the world are not going to have a legitimate argument against you. They're going to lose They're going to lose popularity for anything they say or do against you. You're going to get a lot of allies. So instead of relying on your own military, you're going to get a greater military of allies who will defend you because you're on the right side of things. Now, the US, one of the most armed countries in the world, goes to these wars. And I'm not saying these wars aren't justified. There's legitimate reasons for going to Iraq, Afghanistan, and even Syria. But there's obviously a lot of bad shit done in the name of good. So it's both right and wrong, depending on how you look at it. I'm not justifying or criticising those wars. I'm just saying, as a result of doing those wars, have they won? Now, they overpowered people with military force that these people had no chance whatsoever, yet the US spent shitloads doing it. Shitloads. And they're still having problems. Look, ISIS emerged. After all they did in Iraq, ISIS emerged. So, despite wasting all that money, all that military force, all those weapons, the problem only got worse. And the US is losing popularity in the world. It's losing on every side. They may have invaded and blew the shit out of them all. And what's come of it? Military force in today's world doesn't mean shit. The real war that goes on is a war of words and ideas. The war of the internet and the war of ideas. That's where the war is at. Anyone who uses excessive military force to unjustifiably invade, even if they justifiably invade, they're still going to get criticised and seen as a threat. And I'm not saying don't engage in any war. There's a legitimate reason for it to war. That's another argument for another time. But the more you employ a military force, the more you lose the war. The more military force you use, the more you lose the war. Now, let's just say China heavily armed themselves to be able to take over the whole world. Let's say everyone else didn't disarm themselves, that they armed themselves less, and they worked on sorting their own shit out first and making their own civilizations better, and they're not threatening anyone. Let's just say these people are all living in harmony and peace. They're not a threat to each other. They're not a threat to China. And let's just say the Chinese government arms themselves to shitload, and they go and invade one country after another. Now, China do want to do this. They have an aggressive territorial conquest goals, the Chinese government. I wouldn't say necessarily the Chinese people, but there is a lot of indoctrination in China to fool the Chinese people into thinking this way. But let's just say China starts invading countries. Well, those countries still have the means to fight back and hurt China, but they will lose. Those countries invaded will lose the military war, but they won't. They won't lose the ideological war. Now, let's say China they invade these countries. They're going to face criticism from their own people. Now, let's say they're able to crack down on their own people and engage in these wars at the same time. They're somehow able to manage to balance that out. The more they do it, the more they get criticised and the more they're threatened from within. And they just say they're able to manage to hold on to power and still do these things. Well, what are they going to do about these people they've invaded? Are they just going to kill everyone? The more the people they kill, the more resistance by their own people who are going to kill them. They just paint a target over their own heads. So the more evil they do, the more they paint a target on their own heads, and the more criticism they face from their own people, the more resistance from within their very own people. Not only that, they'll find resistance from the very people they invaded. Now, what are they going to do? Genocide, hunt down every single the last one. Look, the US couldn't do that. The US tried to hunt them all down, and they just kept coming out of the rocks, and more of them coming. And the more that you blow them up, the more of them that grow. They just keep popping up. You just can't eradicate everyone like that. And the more you try, the more you lose the ideological war. Now, such a people who would have been invaded, they would have been ideologically trained and civilized and prepared to win, ideologically armed to win the ideological war, to the point where China would suffer extremely more so for invading, and for even threatening to invade. They would lose the ideological war just for threatening to invade. Just so they did, and they started killing everyone. They wouldn't be able to kill everyone, and the more they do, the more they lose the ideological war until they will be overthrown. Even in the worst case scenario, in the end, they lose. Now, you show them that they will lose if they're stupid enough not to realize that, and they're not stupid enough not to realize that. They know there are consequences to what they do. They're not just scared of being nuked. They're scared that even without nukes are irrelevant to it. They know that if they invade, they're gonna suffer pushback. A type of pushback that they won't be able to stop, and they'll be overthrown. It's like a sword that's sharp on both ends. You hold one end of the sword that's sharp, you hold it in your hand, it's not going to cut you. The moment you try and swing it at someone, you may cut someone else, but you're going to cut off your own hand in the process. So they can't do this. Now, this is why when, just like the US invades Iraq and Afghanistan and all that, they can't just do it by themselves. They need allies to prevent their critics from the pushback. And they do suffer massive pushback, and they have to try and carefully balance with propaganda and all this shit, and it comes at a huge cost. Now, for such an obvious thing as China invading harmless countries that are doing no threat to anyone, how do you think that's going to turn out? Think about it. Just use your noggin. Think. Arm yourself ideologically. Win the information war. Work on bettering yourselves. And stop wasting on excess military. Not all military, but excess military. Significantly cut it down and work on your own shit. And I'm not saying don't get involved in international affairs. I'm saying responsible and reasonable interactions and interventions as they are necessary. I'm saying a lot less interventions too. And that can be argued as what is appropriate and what is not in another time. Now, such a theoretical China is gonna destroy itself in the process of trying to invade. The more power it grasps at, the more it loses. That's how it works. And they know that. What they do, what all these corrupt world powers are doing, they're all bloody corrupt, is they're playing propaganda wars. They're not very good at the information war. The whole lot of them are losing. They conspire together to try and basically collaboratively grasp at power and make agreements and sharing power in these toxic Zionist alliances, and it's all falling apart today. It's all falling apart. Now, stop being intimidated at the threat of a war. Face the possibility that you can be invaded. You can be invaded by an extraterrestrial species tomorrow. You don't know that. And no matter how much you arm yourself, you're not going to be able to prevent yourself from losing. If you use military force, you'll lose the ideological war. You'll lose in the end. Now, if you lose the physical war, you have a chance at, if you're ideologically armed, you'll win the ideological war and you'll win in the end. And your opponent will be completely destroyed and you will end up the victor long term. Yep, people don't see ahead. They don't see the algorithms and how these things work. But politicians who engage in war, they know this. What I'm saying, they know this. This is why when they do go to war, they are very careful to make all these alliances and to make everyone on the right side. And there's a whole careful way they do these things. And it's all very fragile. You are not under the threat of such a huge threat of being invaded by China, Russia, the USA, or anyone else. They can't do shit. They destroy themselves if they try. They hurt themselves at the very least if they try a little bit. Stop being intimidated by the threat of war. Stop arming yourself. Look, when you go out into the neighborhood in the street, you don't go around with a gun just in case someone shoots you because you're scared of someone shooting you. I'm not saying disable citizens. I'm actually saying armed citizens. But if you're paranoid, the idea is if you're paranoid of being shot by someone or mugged by someone, you're already the victim. You've already lost. Grow some fucking balls. Own your shit. Be responsible. Grow up. And learn to deal with possibilities and threats. Learn how to deal with them like a mature bloody grown-up. Stop acting like a scared little child. Face shit. Own shit. It's like thugs who heavily arm themselves and cover themselves in ridiculous tattoos to try and talk themselves up and pretend they're a tough guy. And really, they're weak. They're pathetic little children. They're nobodies. They're violent, pathetic little children. They have such a fragile, pathetic ego. It's ridiculous. You call them a name and they get upset. You can call me any name under the sun. It doesn't affect me in the slightest. I get called ridiculous names all the time. I got called Winkle Picker a few weeks ago. I had to look that one up. Apparently it's a kind of special boot that rock stars wear. That's a strange name to be called. I get called everything. I don't have a fragile ego. It doesn't hurt me. To understand what I'm saying, there's so much depth to this, but it's simple to understand. Just learn how to think, learn how to think ahead and how things work. These people, corrupt people in power, they're stupid, but they're not that stupid. They understand the consequences of actions. These people do evil things. They are experts at getting away with it. They are experts at knowing what happens when they do what they do. That's why they're so desperate now, and they're censoring everybody, and they're trying to intimidate everyone because they are on their last resort, last legs. They know they're fucked, and they don't know what to do about it. And all they know is to be desperate, violent, and aggressive, and try and shut everything down, because they know they're fucked, and they know, and they mismeasured things. They didn't realize a lot of things, and until it was too late. And now they realize they're fucked. And Zionists are turning against each other. And it's a big mess and it's all crumbling under its own weight. The only problem here is they're gonna be gone. It's a matter of how much damage they do before they're gone. Because these people would rather see the world burn than lose power. They would rather see the world burn. But they have a lot less power than they let on. And they're not big scary monsters. They're pathetic little children. So grow some balls. Stop trying to overcompensate for your fears. I'm not saying have no military. I'm saying have less military, significantly less. Only enough as you need and a little bit extra. win the ideological war. Arm yourself with morality and truth, and wield it, and learn how to wield the sword and use that sword. Any enemy that tries to strike you down will be destroyed. And they will likely be destroyed before they even physically touch you with military force. And they will know beforehand, they know very well that they will lose. They know what the consequences of what will happen to them if they try it. That is the best deterrent, more than any nuclear deterrent. That is the deterrent that's stopping them from doing these things. It isn't nuclear war that they're threatened of. These people would rather see the world burn than lose power. So they would, if they would see the world burn just to stand atop the ashes. They're not scared of nuclear holocaust. They would say, bring it on. They want a nuclear holocaust, but they know that if they try it, they will be destroyed. It is the ideological threat, the consequences of that, which they're scared of. Not nuclear weapons, not military physical military force. It's the ideological war. So that's just one topic of military, and you don't need military so heavily armed, and you should use the military as the police, as a general. These are the protectors of threats within and without. Now you save a shitload of money that way, a shitload. You can do things with that money, and I will explain that when I'm towards the end. Now, what next topic? Relates to the military. So done the police, done the military. I've basically covered how law's fucked up, and introduced how to start the beginnings of how to change law, of seeing things from a different perspective. So, there's a few topics I wanted to mention. Just remember which ones they were. There's the social welfare system. Okay, I'll do immigration last. Okay, what do you do with that money? The shitload of money that you got. What do, you dedicate a specific amount of your country's GDP, a specific percentage. Start off with the low percentage. Let's just say you reserve $1 for every single person in the country. That's nothing. Start with $1. You give $1 to every single person in that country of that money that you saved. Now, people who are already on government payments, that $1 that is included in their government payments. So if you're on a pension or something, you don't get shit. But if you work and you're not on government payments, or the money that the government's going to give you in this way is more than your government payments, then you get that excess amount. Or if you work and get no government payments, you get the full amount. So people who work and do, people contribute in some meaningful way who aren't on government payments. They're the ones who get empowered, and they get money back. They get this excess life support payment, or whatever you want to call it. So what happens? People who actually do shit and contribute are empowered. The poor stay poor. They don't get anything out of it. People who work and people who contribute, they get something. The more you contribute, the more you get out of it, because you get, stay the taxes and everything stay exactly the same. Just don't change nothing. Just add this money that you've gained as a dedicated percentage of the GDP. So the higher the GDP, the better your country's going, the more money people get. Just dedicate a percentage of the GDP. So let's just start with $1. Everyone gets $1. People who work are going to have $1. Now that's not going to impact anything in the country, and it's going to have an insignificant effect on the people who work. So if it's not coming at any significant cost of the country, raise it to $2. Still everything's fine. Raise it to $3. Well, just raise it $1 by $1, and eventually you're going to come up to a point where you're investing so much GDP that it's making a difference in spending, that it's becoming less affordable, and as that's becoming less affordable, people who work and contribute are becoming more empowered, and they're able to say they got small businesses with they got the money they get from their work, and they got this other payment on top of it that they can spend with, and they're more enabled to compete against corporations, and even middle, not just large corporations, but middle ones as well. Small businesses are able to compete hugely. So as you do that, all these corporations who are milking countries for everything they're worth are getting less empowered. Small business is becoming more empowered. And there's a power balance that changes the more you add money to this. And the more you do this, the less power corporations have, and the less they're able to milk out of your country, and the more your country actually has to spend on itself. So the more you actually give, the more this money you actually give these people, the workers, the more money you get back in return. Now, there's a lot of factors involved that can change the ratio, but if you start with $1 and just increase it by dollar, and you work out about you without any risk, because you're doing it slowly and progressively, you dedicate a specific percentage of the GDP and you just increase it. There are effects that happen, very positive effects that happen. Evil is disempowered, good is empowered, freedom happens, monopolies are challenged, the cost of living ends up becoming cheaper, and everything balances out and works. You want to debate the details of how this works and test the idea, by all means. Think about this, because basically this idea that I'm proposing is actually the idea behind tax and government and civilization. It's actually one of the fundamental ideas behind it. It's just been lost and confused with all this gibberish, legal nonsense, and people have been indoctrinated into ideas that are unacceptable, ideas about government that they don't agree with. If you really think about this, basically everyone I've ever talked to ends up agreeing with me, thinking, that's actually a good idea. Isn't that what they're supposed to be doing in the first place? And it is. It's what it's supposed to be in the first place. So you don't just take away from the military. And there's one point I wanted to mention before this. It will make a lot more sense. Now, you can get a lot more money than that. Now, what you do is you need to see this from a different perspective. All these special rights groups, all these government funding for Muslim mosques, or feminist organizations, women's organizations, all these 10,000 plus organizations, government funded organizations for minority groups, all this special interest crap, get rid of the whole fucking lot of it. It is discriminatory, it is racist, it is sexist, it is everything it accuses its victims of. Get rid of that shit. It's wrong, it's immoral, and it's already illegal. It's discrimination. Now, obviously, the idea of smaller government, it's not a new concept, and it's the right way to go. And still, there's a lot of people who are foreign to this idea, but it's catching on. But I'm saying a lot more than what people are saying, and I know how to make it work. So you get rid of all these organisations, you expose them for the corrupt, discriminatory crap that they are, and you get rid of them, and you actually imprison a lot of the people behind these organisations because they're criminals. Now, this only happens in white countries, and it's an anti-white narrative designed to genocide and invade white people. It's not an accident that there are all these shitload of organisations, all for these extensive list of minority groups, yet there isn't a single organisation to represent straight people, men, and white people. If you're straight, male, and you're not a drug addict, and you're a normal white person, you are the most discriminated person in the country that people like you actually built. And the people who benefit the most are the worst parasites. It's not by accident. This has all been established by the corrupt Zionist parasites to milk you for everything you're worth and reshuffle the power into their hands and take over and get rid of you and consume you and everything you have. It's not by accident, it is on purpose. See it for what it is. It's racist, genocidal filth, and the people behind it need to go to prison and worse. See it for what it is. Get rid of all that shit. Now, I do advocate a certain level of special privileges. Now, and it's common sense. And it's like this. You differentiate between proper citizens and immigrants. Now, this is all gene pool based. Now, you want to debate this? I'll win the debate any day. No one who criticises this idea will debate it because they know they're wrong and they don't know shit. Civilizations are built by specific gene pools, specifically the white race. Now, other people can build their own civilizations based on what white people gave them, but each different civilization is built by a specific gene pool, a specific way, specific culture, a specific level of culture or lack of it. Now, civilizations are not built through multiculturalism. That's all bullshit. Multicultural egalitarianism, all bullshit. Civilizations, like I'm in Australia. Australia was built by straight white people. Mostly men, not women as well, but mostly straight white men. White people built Australia. Aborigines didn't build Australia. Immigrants didn't build Australia. And white people are not immigrants because they actually built the civilization. There's a difference between immigrants and colonies. White people did not steal land off Aborigines. Or it's all lies to make an onion layers of lies to justify their other lies. It's just ridiculous. Layers and layers of lies. White people built Australia. White people alone. They built it for white people, not for parasitic immigrants to come in and exploit someone else's home. Now, immigration, the concept of immigration, is wrong, it's illegal, it's immoral, and should be seen for the genocidal filth it is. Now, imagine this. You live in your own home, you've got a fridge. Your neighbour doesn't have a fridge, doesn't have any food. So your neighbour just walks into your home, doesn't ask your permission, just walks into your home, opens your fridge, eats out of your fridge, dumps the remainder of the food all over the floor and just walks out. Do they have the right to do that? No, of course not. So why do you allow immigrants to go into your country and do that? It's no different. It's just as wrong. These immigrants would have a go at you for entering their home, but they think that what's theirs is theirs and what's yours is theirs. They're lying, parasite, racist filth. A lot of them don't even realise it. They don't have a problem with it because they have no sense of morality. They come from so-called cultures of complete immorality. They don't care about your rights. They don't care about the people who built that civilization. All they care about is exploiting it for their own gain. They're not contributors like you are. Now, let's just say the best case scenario. Someone from another country, an immigrant from another race, comes into your country, and it doesn't matter which races are which, someone from another race comes into your country which was built by another race. That person comes into your civilization. They didn't build that civilization, but they plug themselves into it and they leech off it. Now let's just say they work hard and they get paid for it. One would argue that they're contributing. No, they're not. They just plugged in, they give a little and they get a lot. They are a net drain on that civilization. They are taking from that civilization in many ways. They're actually a net drain. If they weren't getting something out, they would have never migrated into someone else's country in the first place. They wouldn't be working to milk the system. It's like gambling. Gambling when you know you're going to win. You put $100 in, you get $1,000 out. Just because you put $100 in doesn't mean that you're having a net contribution. People must migrate into white countries, especially because they're milking white countries. They're using all the civilization and government services built by white people. Even if they contribute a little bit, they're taking a lot, and they're taking everything they're taking away from white people in their own country. And they don't give a shit about white people, white people's survival in their own country, white people's rights. They only want their own special rights in white people's countries. See this for what it is. It is racist, genocidal filth. Treat it as such, acknowledge it as such, publicly criticize it and expose it publicly as such. Don't be scared of being called a racist, a sexist, an Islamophobe, or whatever other bullshit they want to call you. Expose this shit. Learn, debate this shit with me and others and each other. Learn how to wield the sword of morality and truth and to strike them in one blow. Most of what they say can be stricken down in one appropriate sentence, and they've got nothing they can say. They're fucked. No matter what they say, they're fucked and exposed. There's nothing they can do about it. Checkmate. One move, checkmate. Most of what they say can be checkmated in one move. So learn how to fight this shit. Don't just learn morality and truth. Learn how to wield it and fight with it. Because the world's fucked if you don't. And I can teach you to be ideologically immortal, to defeat anyone, an army. 1 million of them can stand before you and you defeat every single one. Effortlessly. Anyone can do this. And I can teach you how. I'm not the only one who can teach you how to do this. Even Donald Trump knew some of these tactics. I wouldn't say he's pure, but he at least knows how the game works. This is how he won every step of the way. Every time they attacked him, he only got stronger. The more they attacked him, the stronger he became. And they just don't get it. They're so stupid and short-sighted, they just don't get it. Now, a lot of people know how to do this, but not many of them have the balls to do it, to battle every day like I do. You know, once you realise you can have God mode like this, you can do anything. It may be a bit disturbing at first, what you're able to do. But it's true, you can do this. You can do things beyond what you could possibly imagine. Now, with this immigration stuff, see immigration for what it is genocidal racism. The people calling you a racist are the racists. And most of them don't realise it, and the rest, they know it, they just don't care. But most of them, they don't even realise they're racist. And probably, I would say, as a guess, half of them, if they realised what they were doing, half of them would stop doing it, and the other half would just say, I just don't care, I don't care, I'll do it anyway. So most of them haven't made a decision yet they haven't been faced with what they're doing and realised what they're doing to make a moral decision about it, but some of them have. The ones that have are the masterminds behind this crap. So see these things for what they are. Now, immigrants that do exist in your country, I'm not saying get rid of all immigrants, but I'm saying get rid of a lot of first-generation immigrants. Not all of them, but a lot of first-generation immigrants. And I don't care if you're 10th generation immigrant from another race, you're still living in someone else's country. You may have been born there, but you're not part of that civilization. You're not part of that culture, that race. You are an invader. Whether you acknowledge it or not, you are an invader, and you are a threat to them in many ways. And one of the most significant ways you're a threat to their gene pool. You are a foreign genetic evolution that is inserted into another gene pool. And if you're a threat to having children to that gene pool and inserting your genes into another person's gene pool and corrupting their evolution. Whether you realise it or not, whether intent or not, your very presence there is a threat. And you are a cultural threat. You have an influence. You come from a specific behavioural pattern, specific cultural identity. Well, it doesn't matter if you've got 10th generation Asian living in Australia, you're still an Asian, and Asians do things a different way than white people, whether they recognise it or not. And they pretend all this egalitarianism, tabula rasa bullshit. It's all bullshit. They have a specific disposition, a specific way of doing things. Two different groups have different ways of doing things, and you are an influence. You are an Asian influence in white Australia, whether you acknowledge it or not. It doesn't matter how long you've been living there, you're still influencing the Asian ways into what another person's civilization. Now, that's just one person. Now, one person isn't a significant threat, but what they're doing, one person, it doesn't matter how good their intentions are, they can sacrifice their life for white people. They are still engaging in the genocide of the white culture. No matter how well-intentioned, no matter what they do, they are still forcing themselves in someone else's culture, influencing that culture, whether they intend to or not. It is always genocide, no matter what your intentions are, no matter how much you contribute to helping that culture. You are not part of that culture, and you are like a drop of red ink in blue ink. No matter how much you can spend your life defending that blue ink, but your drop of red ink is actually making that blue ink less blue. No matter how good your intentions are. This needs to be publicly exposed for what it is. It's genocide. Now, it's different when you have, I'm not saying complete segregation and isolation. I'm saying this. You have, let's just round a number, I guess. It's just an idea, a theory, or a hypothesis, what do you want to call it? Let's just say you have only a maximum of only 10% of your national population can be immigrants. Now, let's just say of that 10%, most of them can be, 80% of them can be from your own race, people who share the same cultural, genetic heritage as you. They might not have built your specific civilization in your country, but they belong by extension the same civilization with the same history of civilization, the same heritage. So even though they didn't build your country, they're still the same people, and you come from the same building blocks. So most immigration should be allowed between the same races. Asia between Asians, black people between black people, white people between white people. Most immigration should be like that. Now, from interracial immigration, you restrict that to a much lesser degree, but you don't ban it all outright. You restrict it, and you only maintain a maximum, a specific, very low maximum population of to say in the case of white people, of non-white people in a white country. And you make rules on those people that they're either not allowed to take any government benefits, or they receive less government benefits on purpose, that they do not have the same, access to services as citizens. I'm not saying they don't have human rights. Of course they have basic human rights. They just don't have special rights, and they don't have the same freedoms as citizens do in their own country. And they don't have the power to interfere with that culture and country. So immigrants have less rights. Now, an important responsibility here is you have a choice. Now, you have one child per family while you're an immigrant, or perhaps even none in some cases it could be. But let's just say in a general rule, just say you're only allowed to have one child. You're not allowed to have any more than that. So you're allowed to pass on your genes still while you're an immigrant and remain your heritage in that country. But you're only allowed to halve your generations, each generation, so that you don't outnumber the locals, and other immigrants have a chance of coming in too, and you don't overwhelm the locals. So you're always a minority. And if you were to interbreed with a white person in their own country, as an Asian or a black or whatever, and create an interracial crossbreed, there is a consequence of that. I'm not saying completely ban all interracial crossbreed. I'm saying heavily restrict it and stop the genocide, stop the systematic genocide. Now, and try and keep people as racially pure as you can, but don't completely ban it. It works like this. An interracial crossbreed should, despite them being half white, they do not have access to the same resources as white. They have the same rules as their non-white parent. They are not a white person, and they should be treated same as an immigrant. The same one-child rule. Therefore, you restrict the spread of interracial crossbreeding. You're not banning it, But if you have you're an Asian who has a child with a white person, you know what you're doing. You know the consequences, that you can only have one child in that country. If you want to go to another country who has different rules, then do so. But so long as you exist in my country, you abide by my rules, and you do not overwhelm my people with your foreign DNA. So one child per family, and for non-locals, and the government. Now, as for special benefits, I say there are conditions to that. Now, as I say, get rid of all special benefits, not when it comes to the locals, the citizens. Now, when the population, the proper local population of the gene pool that belongs to, if they're having a very low birth rate, and it's a problem, such as what white people are like, then you do give them a bonus for having children. You do more than that. You have IQ tests. Eventually, if by popular vote, you can have genetic tests for diseases to weed out diseases from the gene pool as well, and you give people bonuses for who don't have diseases or have less genetic diseases, who are of high genetic stock. Now, eugenics happens regardless of whether you're aware of it or not. Being aware of it means that it's a responsibility, and you can use it for good or evil. Eugenics isn't an evil thing. That's just from extreme ignorance. Now, knowing that you have the power to control the future of your gene pool, you have the power to weed out genetic diseases. You have the power to make your people more intelligent. So when you have people above the average IQ, they are given a progressive bonus for having children. So in some meaningful way that promotes people with a higher IQ to have children, and you don't reward anyone from having less than the average IQ. And you may even restrict people from, may or may not restrict people who are below a certain IQ from having a certain amount of children. Now, the way things are now, people with the lowest IQ are rewarded the most for having children. It's reverse eugenics, intentionally, to destroy the white race, to dumb them down. Now, you can do it in the other direction, in a meaningful and constructive way. It's not evil, it's good. It's a good thing. And should, by popular vote, the population decide they want to ease off those restrictions or change those restrictions, let the people decide. Let the people vote on it. So not the politicians, the people decide the future of eugenics for their country. But these restrictions are and bonuses are a good thing. These are the conditions where bonuses and stuff have a place. Only when it comes to promoting the gene pool, the quality of the gene pool. It is a responsibility of the government to do that. That's what they're there for. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And you don't give any of these rewards to immigrants or interracial crossbreeds. You give them to people of the local heritage who are of higher intelligence or have without genetic diseases. Those who have serious spreadable genetic diseases, like, for example, governments today, they often sterilize people with certain diseases. Purpose is so that they don't fuck the gene pool up. Governments do that today. A lot of people, like people with Down syndrome, can actually be sterilized by birth anyway. Now, I'm not saying discriminate against people with Down syndrome, but people who have serious genetic flaws that can fuck up the gene pool should not be allowed to fuck up the gene pool. In some cases, they should not be allowed to have children. I'm not saying they can't have a good life and have other benefits of being a citizen. I'm saying they just shouldn't be allowed to fuck up the gene pool. Having children is not necessarily a right. It shouldn't be seen as a right. It's a responsibility. It can be a right, but in some cases it cannot be a right. A bunch of Muslims can't just move into a white country and have 8 children per generation and in 20 years outnumber the locals and then go and kill all the locals and turn it into a giant mosque. And that's what they're fucking trying to do. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's genocide. It's racist, genocidal crap. Should be seen for what it is. When you're living in someone else's country, you should be placed under a lot of restrictions and not have the same rights as locals. Now, if I go to Saudi Arabia as a white person, I don't expect to go to Saudi Arabia and demand welfare payments and special rights more than their citizens have. I expect to have less rights than their citizens have. While I don't expect from Saudi Arabia, I think it is right that Saudi Arabia should respect my basic rights, even though they wouldn't. But I want Saudi Arabia to respect my basic human rights, but I don't expect anything from them beyond that. And if I go to Nigeria, China, or anywhere else in the world that is not of my heritage, I shouldn't demand any of those rights. Now, if I'm white, I come from the UK. My ancestors were slaves shipped off from the UK into Australia. Now, I recognise that I am actually a British person who's a colony of Britain. Whether a separate government or not, I'm still of the same people, which are also Germanic. They are my people, whether they're in Germany speaking German or they're in Britain speaking British, in a different country under a different government, still the same people. As far as I'm concerned, people of the same heritage, whether they're split up into different governments, they should be seen as the same people, and immigration between those people should be largely free, or in some cases completely free. Just depending. It's not stagnant laws that never change, but laws that change with the times as they need to. With a system of progressively changing laws depending on the context of factors. So a system put in place where specific laws change to a different degree. Like, for example, the population growth determines the level of immigration. So there's an algorithm that stays the same, but the amount of immigration changes depending on that algorithm, if you understand what I mean. So immigrants should be seen for what they are, and those who share the same heritage should not be seen in the same light as immigrants. I should be free to enter Britain. British should be free to enter here because we are the same people, and we should not be seen as separate entities. We are in different governments in different sides of the world, but we are the same people. I'm not saying make us the same government, but we should have a connection between each other, an open transit route between each other. And all people of the shared heritage, whether they're separated by governments, I don't care what your race is, just should have the same rights. Now, if I go to anywhere else in the world, any non-white person, China, Nigeria, or Saudi Arabia, I don't expect to have the same rights that they demand in my country. They're hypocrites. They're lying hypocrites. If I proposed that I could go to a Saudi Arabian immigrant who comes to Australia with a big ego on his shoulders and thinking that he has all these rights to this welfare payments, 4 wives, and all this crap, if I proposed to him that I could go to Saudi Arabia and do the same and promote my religion in Saudi Arabia, he'd be offended. Yet he does the same thing to me, but that's okay. The lying hypocrisy crap, it's just pathetic. See this shit for what it is. See these people for what they are. Many of them are so far gone and so evil, they don't realise they're evil. They think that what they're doing, there's nothing wrong with it, because they got no moral compass whatsoever. See them for what they are. Now, some of these people can actually be reasoned with. They have a massive light bulb moment, a massive dolt moment, and they sometimes they make the right decision. But most of them don't. They just don't give a shit. And this is bred into these people. This behaviour and morals, they're not given by society. These are genetic. These are evolutionary things. Almost exclusively evolutionary. And by debating this shit, you can see the truth. You can see through all this tabula rasa lie bullshit. It's all anti-white lies. All anti-white. Lie after lie after lie. For example, the idea of white people coming from black people. So apparently humans had black skin and blacks are the master race. And white people are just a recent phenomenon. Therefore, it's okay to genocide white people and interbreed with black people because white people are really just recent black people. So fuck their whiteness. Their whiteness isn't important. It's just black. They're still black people. It's designed to downplay the white race's existence and justify its genocide. Now, the truth is, the white race is the master race. I can prove it. What colour skin do rats have? Chimpanzees, dogs, cats. White skin, just like white people. They all have white skin. All these animals separated from humanity many, many millions of years ago, and then white skin has existed for a very long time. So, according to their theory, all humans somehow just randomly developed black skin, and white people just went white again. So they went black, then went white again. That's total bullshit. Doesn't work like that. Black people were actually once white people. They have black skin for a reason. Now, white people, the original humans were white. They lost their hair about 2 million years ago. They lost their hair for reasons that people can theorize on, but whatever their reason they lost their hair in, these white people lived throughout Africa for a very long time with white skin. They did not move into Europe and get white skin in the cold. No, they developed white skin a long time before while they still had hair. They just didn't lose their white skin. The reason they didn't lose their white skin while they lost their hair is because they evolved. They made good choices, they segregated, and they made good choices and they evolved. Others didn't. They abandoned their heritage and they made bad choices, and they weren't under evolutionary pressures. And what happened was they failed to evolve intelligence, the intelligence to build shelter, and they stood out in the sun all day, and they developed dark skin. Now, Asians separated from those people when they first started going dark, and they stopped going dark. They evolved and went into the cold, and they evolved to some degree, less than whites, but they evolved, and they still have some of their tan from it. Black people stayed in the environment where they were under no evolutionary pressures. They didn't migrate out of that environment, and they just stagnated, and they stopped evolving for a very long time, while white people evolved the most. They developed black skin as a failed evolution. Black skin is a failed evolution. When animals lose their hair, they either evolve to use shelter, or they fail to evolve and stagnate, and they develop black skin as a last resort. Black skin is a failed evolution. An evolution that happens as a last resort when you fail to evolve otherwise. Of course, that's taboo, and it's difficult for anyone to face, but that's how it works. Races are very different in very different ways, and the most important ways are behavioral and cultural ways. This is all genetic. It is almost exclusively genetic. And anyone wants to debate me over that, really educate yourself on this stuff and be prepared to rethink everything you've been taught about race, about behavior, about heritage. If you're not preserving everyone's heritage, like branches of a tree, the tree of life, if you're not preserving those branches and you're trying to merge them in on each other and interracial bastardize and fuck up evolution, then you are a threat to the tree itself. You are a virus. You are a racist, genocidal, anti-life virus. You are a corruptor. And realize what the fuck you are. Realize that, and if you don't want to be that, then choose not to be. Start defending the victims, which is especially the white race, but others are victims as well. Start defending all victims in the tree of life, human, animal, or whatever, from this genocide. If you just sit on your ass and say, I don't give a shit, you're the fucking problem. You are the fucking virus. And sadly, not all, but most non-white people are inherently racist. And they are inherently racist, especially against white people, and they are intimidated by white people because white people, the truth is, white people are far more evolved, and they are superior, not in all ways, but most ways. And they are vastly superior in the most important ways. Get over it. Get over the inferiority complex. Stop trying to cut down everyone who's better than you. Stop trying to rule over those who are lower than you. and start working on bettering yourself. That's what makes the white race superior. They work on bettering themselves. They evolved a disposition for this shit. You didn't. The rest of you didn't. It doesn't have to be that way. You can fix this fucked up behavior that you've evolved. You can turn it all around. You just need to make the fucking choice. Now we all come with pre-planted seeds of weeds and flowers. Different races and different family lines come with pre-planted programming of good and evil in them. Now some have a lot of evil pre-planted in them, but the person with the most evil planted in them can become one of the greatest people. If they cultivate their field, they weed the garden, and they grow the flowers. They can take their fucked up heritage, and they can make it right. They can build it into something better. Now, one of my most favorite quotes of all times is, "Everything in this world can be built into something better." Guess who said that? Adolf Hitler. Yeah, one of the most slandered people in history. Question everything you've been told about him. All bullshit. He was a great man who is massively slandered for reasons. In fact, I recommend you look up The Greatest Story Never Told on YouTube, if you can get a copy of that. My story is the greatest story ever told. A guy made a documentary of Adolf Hitler called The Greatest Story Never Told. I highly recommend it. And look into the Holocaust bullshit. Look into it. It's hard to find information because it's censored, but there's a lot available if you look into it. It's all bullshit. Just justification of what they do to the white race today. Just lies to justify hatred of the white race and the genocide and exploitation of the white race. So it's immigration topic. See it for what it is. Immigrants should not be given the same rights as the citizens. They don't get the same rights the other way around. I don't go to Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, or China and have the same thing. I don't expect as much. It was wrong for me to even ask as much. It is wrong for them to do so in our countries. It's wrong and it's immoral, it's racist and it's genocidal. So you restrict immigrants from having this benefit from the government that you give to everyone. Now, if you did that, when you have a country that immigrants get the vote, you're not going to get this shit into the government. So what you do is you give them the right. You give them this start off with $1, $2, $3, however you want to start it off with, and increase it. You offer it to them too. Now, if you offer this to these immigrants, they're going to vote for you. And despite all the lies, they're going to call you racist. They're going to say you're going to try and take away rights from immigrants. Debate this shit. Debate them. Call them on that shit, and show them that you're offering them more than the government will ever offer them, and they will vote for you. Own them in debate. Expose this shit. Fight it. Wield the sword of truth and cut through them. No excuses, no apologies, no fear. Face it without flinching. And cut right through them. So there's other topics I can cover, so many on this idea. There's a way it can all be done, and it starts off with my plan that I need help with programmers to establish an instant messaging system where we can talk without government censors. We can talk IP to IP or through anonymous servers who transfer the information to higher IP if necessary. But servers are not required. We can speak by default IP to IP, and we have servers as an option, and choose our server that we want. I've got all the answers to how it works. I just can't code it. I just presently can't code it. I need programmers to help me code it. I can write all the algorithms. I can't code it. An instant messaging client where we can speak without the need to use social media and use servers that we're forced to use. And from there we can discuss and debate and form an underground, expose the deep web or dark web or whatever you want to call it. Let everyone use it. Access through this tool. Let's build our own dark webs and deep webs and stuff, and share ideas and information, debate all the shit, and get to the truth, you'll see it's all true. It's all right and it's all true. I haven't lost a debate in 20 years. I can prove it. I can just debate me and I can show you. And I can show you how to debate yourself. All right, give me a sec. I just need to pause this if it'll pause. Okay, I'm back. So what I need people who with the courage and fortitude to debate me and debate each other and learn how to wield the sword of truth and get off their ass and do something and fight this war. I need people who are going to get off their ass and be on the right side of history, the right side of the truth. People who are not going to shy away from debate. I've been searching and searching. No one will get off their ass. If no one gets off their ass, and Hitler said this himself, if a people are not willing to rise up and defend their heritage, then they deserve to die and to be exterminated. And that's true. He said it's true. If you're not going to stand up for your heritage and defend yourself and defend your race and defend others against the same genocidal crap, Zionist crap, then you deserve everything that comes your way. As Dr. Manhattan said, the labours that are to build a heaven, yet their heaven is populated with horrors. All this apathy and what you think you're contributing to is hell. You're building hell itself. Yet no one wants to get off their ass and do anything about it. No one will get off their fucking ass. And I'm searching for those who will. Those who have the courage and fortitude to debate me and each other, establish the truth, establish the instant messaging system. Starts with the instant messaging system where we can communicate covertly, privately, and we can talk, get to the truth of all matters, and then we can sort out what we're going to do about it. And I have answers to every important question if you just debate me over it. Sometimes it'll take hours and hours, maybe days, and you'll see, and I'll prove everything. But no one will face me. No one will debate me. They know they're not confident in their beliefs, but because no one wants to really make a contribution to the world. That they just want to be a parasite on it. It's fucking pathetic. Anyone listens to this and you want to rise up and do something about the world, you want to give something to the world, do it for real. Help me do it. Help me save this world. In fact, listen to my last story, the greatest story never told. It's the greatest story ever told, on playlist of my Jeremy Martin YouTube account, the Purple Man account. Listen to that 11-hour story and decide whether you want to be a part of that and you want to build a better world. No excuses, no apologies, no delays. Just fucking do it. So I've covered just a couple of topics of a new form of government. Now, I could explain so much, but I've gone on for ages as is. Hopefully I've given at least a framework of some ideas, how to see things from a completely different perspective, and how it works. Debate me on this shit. If you have any doubts, question me. You think you found a hole in it? Look into that hole. I'm not going to be offended if you engage me on it. I'll be glad that you do. You know, maybe there is a hole. I haven't lost a debate in 20 years, but maybe there is a hole. Maybe you found a hole in my ideas. If you can expose a hole in my ideas, I'm grateful for it. I'm not offended. The only thing that offends me is evil. False beliefs don't offend me. It's understandable to be misled in this fucked up world of smoke and mirrors, but it doesn't have to be that way. Debate and solve it. Face it. Just a matter of who's willing to face me, who can debate me, who's willing to listen to and hear my story out. Everyone runs away. They call me silly names, they run away, and they just go about their crap, just being an idiot. No one's willing to invest anything into anything but themselves. I spent my whole life sacrificing my life for others, and I don't consider that something special. I consider that normal. Being selfish is fucked up. It's abnormal. It's alien to me. Being an altruist is what I am. I consider that normal. I don't consider that special. I consider it normal. I consider that the bar, the minimum standard bar, at least the minimum standard bar to live by. So debate me on of everything I've said. There was a few more important points I was going to bring up, but I forgot which points they were. There's so much. I can cover everything. Engage me about it. All right, I'm going to regret not mentioning. I'll probably remember after I stop this. I'm going to remember important points I wanted to make, and that I would have forgotten. Damn, I wish I said that. But look, just debate me over this shit. Doesn't matter. Just debate me over it, and we'll get to those points. Any points that matter. There's so much points you can cover. So many important points. I just wanted to bring up a few points that I discussed earlier today, that I'll make a video about because they're important. All right, I'll stop this recording from now. It's probably gone for well over an hour, but I can talk about this all day, every day till I lose my voice. I'm starting to lose my voice now. Engage me, debate me, and each other. This is important. Debate. All right, I'm going to stop the video now. Just talk to me anytime, engage me anytime about any of these ideas. All right, stopping.